The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.thebenjamindixonshow.com to register for our blog and join the Progressive Army.
Welcome, ladies, gentlemen, and gender nonconforming individuals to another episode of The Benjamin Dixon Show. Today is Friday, August 11th, 2023. Thank you so much for joining me. Attorney General Merrick Garland has appointed a new special counsel in the investigation into President Joe Biden's son, Hunter Biden. Now, whereas there has been an ongoing investigation into Hunter Biden by the Department of Justice, it was not until today that the investigator, David Weiss, was given special counsel status similar to that of Jack Smith, who just indicted President Trump a second time. Let's listen to Attorney General Merrick Garland as he explains the reason and rationale behind this decision.
On Tuesday of this week, Mr. Weiss advised me that in his judgment, his investigation had reached a stage at which he should continue his work as a special counsel, and he asked to be so appointed. Upon considering his request, as well as the extraordinary circumstances relating to this matter, I have concluded that it is in the public interest to appoint him as special counsel. This appointment confirms my commitment to provide Mr. Weiss all the resources he requests. It also reaffirms that Mr. Weiss has the authority he needs to conduct a thorough investigation and to continue to take the steps he deems appropriate independently, based only on the facts and the law.
Well, I do have some reservation about that last sentence from Merrick Garland, that it will be based only on the facts and based only on the law, when we have seen conservatives be willing to not only blur the facts, but outright lie and then take actual action, political and legal action based on lies. That's the era that we live in right now. And I bring this up in context of David Weiss because he was appointed by Donald Trump as a U.S. attorney in 2017. Now, does this mean that he cannot do a professional job? That he will not uphold the highest standards in terms of legality, in terms of constitutionality? No, it doesn't mean that at all. But we have seen a record of judges, and honestly, this entire period is inundated with officials, leaders of this country, no matter what position, whether they are a judge or a politician, whatever. We have seen them demonstrate a willingness to not only blur the law, but outright ignore it, to outright lie. And giving this guy special counsel status gives him the freedom and the autonomy to do whatever he so chooses to do, however he so chooses to do it. And the reason I have this pulse, because I'm going to be honest with you, I see this two different ways. Number one, do the investigation, do it thoroughly. If there's something there, then govern yourselves accordingly. I have no connection to Hunter Biden. Hunter Biden is not running for president. The closest thing they could get to getting Joe Biden is his son, Hunter Biden. And in fact, later on in today's episode, I'll play you a clip of Republicans trying yet again to impeach Joe Biden. And we've seen their willingness again to just completely outright lie just for political points. And the fact that this U.S. Attorney David Weiss requested of Merrick Garland to get the special counsel status at this particular juncture, just a week after Jack Smith indicted Donald Trump, it does set off an alarm for me. And of course, I could just be completely just over exaggerating the potential threat from the Republican Party. But have we not seen this exact type of behavior from the conservative ranks, from top to bottom, from the president of the United States down to the level of the school board? Have we not literally experienced a period of time where conservatives will outright lie, distort the truth, use propaganda, use any means at their disposal, including the usage of the Justice Department to execute their vendettas, to move the political football forward for them, right? To advance their agenda. So it becomes impossible for me to look at this and give special counsel David Weiss the benefit of the doubt but I will give him time. Let's run the course. Let's see if he can handle himself with a level of integrity that rises above what conservatives show us every single day. Here's more from Attorney General Merrick Garland.
Mr. Weiss will also continue to serve as U.S. Attorney for the District of Delaware. As special counsel, he will continue to have the authority and responsibility that he has previously exercised to oversee the investigation and decide where, when, and whether to file charges. The special counsel will not be subject to the day-to-day supervision of any official of the department, but he must comply with the regulations, procedures, and policies of the department. Consistent with the special counsel regulations, at the conclusion of Mr. Weiss's work, he will provide me with a report explaining the prosecution or declination decisions reached by him. As with each special counsel who has served since I have taken office, I am committed to making as much of his report public as possible, consistent with legal requirements and department policy. Today's announcement affords the prosecutors, agents, and analysts working on this matter the ability to proceed with their work expeditiously and to make decisions indisputably guided only by the facts and the law.
I mean, Attorney General, Brother Merrick Garland, I hear you repeat it, that they should be guided only by the facts and the law. And the fact that you repeated it means that you have some internal suspicion, just like I do. I find it extremely impossible right now for me to give a single conservative the benefit of the doubt when it comes to their moral character and integrity. And so I don't know Jack. I didn't know Jack Smith from anyone else. But one thing I certainly know about progressivism, liberalism, and the left-leaning side of our political spectrum is that if you lie, if you distort the truth, there are thousands upon thousands of people on our side of the equation that will call you out, and they don't care whether or not it's in their favor or works against them. I mean, it's kind of a blessing and a cursing of being on this side of the equation. We simply cannot get away with lying like the conservatives do. And so while I don't know anything about Jack Smith, I do know that if he doesn't dot every I and cross every T, not only will conservatives have come after him with a legitimate case, but there would have been progressives, liberals, Democrats who would have come out against him. With conservatives, with the Republican Party, they have demonstrated that they will engage in every lie. They do not care how big the lie is. They will distort every truth. And it's just now in 2023, as some of these guys are getting ready to run for president, it is just now that they're turning back to speak a little bit of truth. I'm thinking about Chris Christie, or what's the Herd guy who called out Donald Trump and got booed. I'm thinking about them because there's just a few Republicans now who are leaning back in to say the truth. But I don't know. What about you? Do you feel that you can trust that a conservative appointed U.S. attorney will actually do what Merrick Garland said, which is be guided by nothing but the facts and nothing but the law? I feel a little, I'm not going to lie to you, I feel a little bit disappointed in myself because I'm not capable of extending the benefit of the doubt to a conservative. But until they show us otherwise, until David Weiss, if David Weiss, the U.S. attorney, runs a legitimate operation and he brings legitimate charges against Hunter Biden, oh, well, fine by me. Go to jail, Hunter. I seriously do not care. But I have a feeling that we're getting ready to be gaslit, and we're going to see them use their technique of critical mass to ignore the facts, to ignore the law, and just score political points with Hunter Biden in order to attack Joe Biden and help a Republican win the White House in 24. We'll be back right after this.
I'm in sync with the earth, 10 toes deep, flower child from the turf. I never switch sides, like even when I die, I'm a ride for the squad, let her ties in the hearse. I've been on a vibe, kinda hard to describe. I'm in between, I'm good and it's fine, but
to The Benjamin Dixon Show.
Yep.
Visit us online at thebenjamindixonshow.com.
Welcome back. Welcome back. New cases and new hospitalizations from COVID-19 have increased over the summer, according to reports from the Centers for Disease Control. During the week of July 23rd, hospitalizations in the United States rose 12.5%. According to the TallahasseeDemocrat.com, that's the newspaper in the state of Florida, the capital of Florida, they're reporting that the Florida Department of Health noted a jump in cases since the July 4th holiday. New data shows that COVID cases have risen from 5,607 new cases in the week of May 12th to just under 10,000 new cases in the week of July 14th, a 77% increase in just a 10-week period. That's a lot. That's just for the state of Florida. And there's even a new variant that is out. A new variant has dropped, Eris. And that has accounted for 17.3% of all COVID cases in the United States in the week ending of August 5th. Again, that is from the Tallahassee Democrat, which is a newspaper in the capital of Florida. Ron DeSantis' state, Ron DeSantis is out there bragging about him successfully keeping the state of Florida free, as opposed to taking precautions to keep people alive in the state of Florida. But here we are. One of the most triggering and traumatizing, I think is a better word than triggering, events in our lifetime has been not just the pandemic itself, not COVID-19, but the fact that we have all had to collectively move on as though it's no longer happening. That has, I can't even lie to you folks, that has been one of the main reasons I've had to sit on the ocean and meditate for hours to keep my sanity, because of the unimaginable. Well, no, that's not true, because I'm sure you can imagine how frustrating and how enraging it is to live in this current moment, trying to protect your family, whatever your family looks like, whether they're elderly people or you got young children like me, it doesn't matter. All of us who tried to protect and are still trying to protect our families have been left to our own devices. The CDC, the federal government has all but abandoned us, to the extent that I'm actually surprised that we're getting this report. There was such a long period where the news media was pretending like COVID-19 was over. I mean, the verbiage, the language, the past tense in their language suggested that there was a consensus across all United States media to move on. And so now that they're reporting this uptick, that, number one, should let you know that it is very serious. So please start masking again if you've stopped. Put your mask back on. And then number two, it reminds me of the fact that they can control the narrative so much that the entire country moved away from all of the procedures that could have protected us from yet another surge. And it is also reminding me of how dangerous people like Robert Kennedy Jr., like the right-wing comedian Jimmy Dore, how dangerous they are because of their 100% commitment to using their audience to spread misinformation about COVID-19, to discourage the vaccine. I want to play a clip from Fox News where Fox host Maria Bartoma uses today as the occasion to begin promoting ivermectin again.
Because you were talking to doctors to try to find out the right ways to treat COVID without having to get too many boosters and COVID shots. I remember I took ivermectin, and, it was hard to do because initially the pharmacist wanted to report my doctor, and he didn't want to, I had to, it was hard to find my doctor to finally, address this and prescribe ivermectin. He did. My COVID was gone in a day when I took ivermectin, and now 3 years later, the FDA says, oh, yeah, that's fine. Take ivermectin. What?
Now, I did my best to track down her claim that the FDA has said it's okay, take ivermectin. And the only thing that I have been able to find with regard to the FDA and ivermectin is that, well, there are doctors who make money prescribing ivermectin that are suing the FDA because the FDA is launching a campaign or is in the middle of a campaign discouraging people from using ivermectin for COVID-19. Okay, I just needed to take a second to let you see just how terribly malicious Fox News really is, to allow that host to say this untruth and then use an anecdote saying that her COVID was going in a day because of ivermectin. There's literally no way that that's possible, except perhaps she was at the end of COVID-19, of the run of the COVID-19 in the first place, right? But she's lying. Okay. See, that's me trying to give people the benefit of the doubt. And I'm going to learn to not do that with conservatives at all, because they just outright will lie to you, even if that lie gets you killed. See, that's the other part of this. Fox News, Robert Kennedy Jr., the so-called frontline doctors, people like Jimmy Dore, they got paid money to promote ivermectin, and that got people killed. People were taking ivermectin instead of the vaccine, and that literally got some people killed. But do you think that gave any pause to the likes of Robert Kennedy Jr., to Maria Bartiromo from Fox News? Do you think Stella Emanuel, that's the lady, the doctor from Frontline Doctors, the so-called Frontline Doctors, she's also the lady who promoted the demon sperm idea. I don't know if you recall that, but do you think she paused for a second from prescribing, I think how many thousand prescriptions for ivermectin? No, these people did not slow down because their lies got people killed. They doubled down because their lies were making them money. And see, that kind of puts the barbarity of our times in perspective. We not only do not care about our brothers and our sisters and our gender nonconforming friends, we're willing to profit off of their deaths. Of course, that's nothing new when you really consider the history of the United States of America. But here was something that was new. A virus, a novel coronavirus, something that was different, that millions of people have now died from. And instead of us being free to move on with our lives because we took all the right precautions as a society, we shut down as a society, and we all took the vaccine and quarantined. No. Instead of that, we are in year 3 going into year 4 of a pandemic where millions did not have to die. And yet we still have the same sick, twisted, and sadistic individuals who are profiting off of the number of people who die because, well, at least they made their money off of selling them ivermectin, their referral fee, their commission. These are the people who are in competition with the rest of us to run civilization, to manage this empire, this country. Those are the people who care so little about human life that they would just as soon lie to you and let that lie cause you death than to stand on truth.
Go to www.patreon.com/The BPD Show and get twice the content and unfiltered interviews without any of the commercial interruptions. Welcome back to The Benjamin Dixon Show. Visit us online at thebenjamindixonshow.com.
In my coverage of Christian nationalism, one of the biggest and loudest and most devastating voices in the conversation is former General Mike Flynn, who was also the former national security advisor for Donald Trump. He's also a pardoned criminal. I want to play for you a clip of Michael Flynn in a church where he's speaking to congregants and the pastors at this special event. And he's letting them know that Every now and then they need to put down the Bible and teach the Constitution. Let me let you hear the clip, and then let's discuss why this particular message is so dangerous.
Our Constitution, if you read our Constitution, and you should, in fact, you should put the Bible aside and read the Constitution during some of your sermons. Just read pieces of it. Why? Because if you study our Constitution, I mean study it. You study the Federalist Papers. You study the writings of our founders. Writings as deep as reading the letters from our founding fathers to their wives or to their children. They're fascinating. And the United States Constitution, the Bill of Rights, the Declaration of Independence are based primarily on the Bible. They are. They are. There's no doubt about it.
Yes, there's plenty of doubt about it, because the founders themselves said that they weren't basing this on the Bible, but I digress. Here's what's clearly the problem here. This is hardening the resolve of these white evangelical churches to lean into their Christian nationalism and their theocratic fascism. That's all this is. This is just another way to give these white evangelical pastors permission to ignore any of the teachings in the Bible that contradict directly Christian nationalism, right? Essentially just ignore all of Jesus's teachings, because you can't read Jesus's teachings and think that Christian nationalism is a good thing. But here's the second thing that's really critical in what Michael Flynn said. He is forwarding this argument that was also forwarded by the Oklahoma State school superintendent, or superintendent of schools, where he was arguing that because from their interpretation of the history of this country, because those documents were written and inspired by the Bible, therefore we should be willing to teach the Bible in public schools. We had an episode on that about 3 weeks ago. The Oklahoma State school superintendent is trying to get the Bible to be taught in schools as a historical document because of what Michael Flynn just said at the end of his clip, which was, well, these documents, these founding documents in our country were founded and based rather on the Bible. So that's why Michael Flynn thinks that you can put the Bible aside for a second and just read the Constitution in church. And then at the schools, like in Oklahoma, they want you to put down the history books and read the Bible instead. Do you see how they're working both sides of the aisle on this? They're sincerely leaning into their theocratic fascism. They want not even Christ-centered. It is not. There's nothing Christ-centered about what they believe, but they'll say Christ-centered. But at the end of the day, they want a society they can dominate with their own interpretation, even if it contradicts with what Christ said. You want an example? Well, yesterday's show, we talked about very briefly the Raw Story article, rawstory.com, where a pastor was alarmed after Trump-loving congregants derided Jesus's teachings as weak. And here's a passage from the article. It was, quote, "It was the result of having multiple pastors tell me, essentially, the same story about quoting the Sermon on the Mount, parenthetically in their preaching, quote unquote, turn the other cheek, and to have someone come up after and say, where did you get those liberal talking points?" And what was alarming to me, this is still a quote, what was alarming to me is that in most of these scenarios, when the pastor would say, I'm literally quoting Jesus Christ, the response would not be, oh, I apologize. The response would be, yes, but that doesn't work anymore. That's weak. So these Christian nationalists are not Christ-centered at all. They are willing to turn on Jesus himself because they don't need a gospel or a religion that is peaceful. They don't need one that is loving. They don't need a religion that they could possibly have a coexistence with other people. No, they need a religion that they can wield as a weapon, as a bludgeoning tool, so that they can obtain and maintain power, political and economic and societal power by any means necessary. And so when you hear them talking about preaching the Constitution in the church and teaching the Bible in schools, understand that what they're talking about is a very specific interpretation that is aimed at causing the maximum harm. Here's another example of why you simply just shouldn't give conservatives the benefit of the doubt. And that's a very difficult statement for me to make, because one of the most important lessons I've learned over the last 3 years, if no other time, is the importance of being patient enough to give people the benefit of the doubt. However, when people show you time and again exactly who they are, giving them the benefit of the doubt would be your fault. File this next story underneath: Republicans are not good people. This is from Cleveland.com. The headline reads, Marjorie Taylor Greene's 2020 campaign manager and 2 others agreed to pay $50,000 for roles in East Palestine charity scam. Now, you may not recall what happened in East Palestine, but that's where the train derailed, and the chemicals that spilled out have been causing reactions and sicknesses and people having to go to the hospital. And we still honestly don't know the effects of all of the chemicals that the people of East Palestine will have over the long haul. But that did not stop Republicans, high-level Republicans, campaign managers for a sitting member of Congress, and 2 others from participating in a scam. Now, I'm going to read you a little bit of the article, but I also want you to put in your memory banks all of the scams that came around building the wall, right? All of the money that they took from their own supporters and with no intention of actually accomplishing anything that they promised. I mean, we could say the same about Donald Trump. Here are some of the details from Cleveland.com about Marjorie Taylor Greene's former campaign manager. Quote, a political consultant who acted as U.S. Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene's 2020 campaign manager and 2 others have agreed to pay more than $50,000 in restitution and penalties for their roles in operating a phony East Palestine charity in the aftermath of a widely publicized train derailment. Under a settlement announced Thursday by Ohio Attorney General David Yost, Isaiah Wortman and Luke Mahoney of WAMA Strategies must pay more than $22,000 in restitution to a local food bank, as well as $3,000 in investigative costs and fees to Yost's office. Michael Pepple, the co-founder of the fake charity called the Ohio Clean Water Fund, agreed to pay a $25,000 civil penalty and a lifetime ban on him starting, running, or soliciting for any charity in Ohio, according to a Yost release. Wortman and Mahoney were fundraisers for the Ohio Clean Water Fund, a fake charity that collected nearly $149,000 from donors in the aftermath of the February 3rd derailment, which released toxic chemicals into the area, leading to evacuations and reports of health issues. So they created a fake charity and raised this money in order to exploit the most vulnerable population at that moment, which was a community that was suffering from the chemical spills after a train derailment. These people are not good people. I want to read you a few more details. Quote, the group claimed the money would be given to the Second Harvest Food Bank of the Mahoning Valley, but the scammers gave only $10,000 to the food bank and pocketed the rest. Now, here's the problem I have. If they raised $149,000, only gave away $10,000, but their fines is only totals up to about $50,000, that leaves them with the majority of the money that they raised. That leaves them with $90,000 that they raised. Where's the rest of that money at? Patrons, stay tuned. Everyone else, I'll see you Monday.
The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.patreon.com/The BPD Show. and support The Benjamin Dixon Show. If you like this episode, be sure to share, like, and subscribe.